You are 34 years old. Your cottage sits on the road to Ross, a single room, a dirt floor. One stool, a roof patched with straw that gives out every spring. 2 winters ago, your father died owing money to 3 men in the parish. The debt came to you. The coin never did. No one in Herefordshire hires a debtor's son to thatch a roof or mind a flock anymore. Doors that used to open for you now stay shut before you finish knocking. Your wife, Mary, still talks to you in the evenings. Fewer people talk to her now too, since she married you. She has stopped mentioning it. You have stopped asking. Bread ran out 3 days ago. A boy comes to your door at dusk, sent by a family 2 farms over. Someone has died in the night, unconfessed, unprepared, and they need it settled before the burial tomorrow. He will not say the word for what they need. He does not have to. Everyone on this road knows there is only one man left willing to do this. He sits beside a corpse, eats what is placed on its chest, and carries away what the dead man never had the chance to put down himself. You have never done it before. You have watched a man do it, once, at your own grandmother's funeral. And you remember exactly how the rest of the village stepped back from him afterward. The way you would step back from something rotting. The boy is still standing in your doorway. Mary is watching you from the stool, not saying anything. You have not answered him yet. She says yes on your behalf before you do. Mary takes the boy's hand, tells him yes, then closes the door, and looks at you like you've already decided. That night you kneel beside a body for the first time. A crust of bread sits on the dead man's chest, a bowl of ale beside it, exactly as your grandmother's sin-eater once did it. The family stands against the far wall, not looking at you, not looking at him. You eat. You drink. You say the words an old woman taught you that afternoon, the ones about Leviticus and the goat that carried Israel's sins into the wilderness. And for a moment, you believe you are doing something almost priestly, something that matters more than the men who refuse to hire you. The son of the house comes forward once it's done. He puts 6 pence on the table without meeting your eyes. It is the custom price, paid only after, never before. As if paying first would make it too much like buying something clean. Word moves faster than shame does. Within a season, 3 more families send for you in the dark. Always at night, always through a boy who won't say the word for what you do. None of them speak to you at market the next morning. You start to understand the shape of the work. Paid in bread and ale before the coin. Paid only once the sins are already sitting in your stomach. So no one has to admit they hired you until it's finished. The curate stops you outside the churchyard gate one Sunday. He tells you, without raising his voice, that you are not to come inside. Not this Sunday. Not any Sunday. He says it the way a man mentions the weather. Then a message comes from Hereford itself, from a widow with a house and land and a family name people still bow to. You are brought in through the kitchen door, never the front. She is not dying yet. She wants to arrange it now, while she still can, exactly the way she wants it done. She hands you a wooden bowl, a good one, carved, and tells you it is to be kept for her, and only her, for as long as it takes. She says her priest already knows and has already objected, and she does not care. She says this the way other women might mention a dress they've had made. You have never met anyone who spoke about her own death, and about you, with that much certainty. Bread is harder to find that winter than 6 pence is. You start selling what little is left of your father's old tools, one at a time, to men who won't look at you either but will still take a fair price. Mary stops going to market herself. She sends a neighbor's daughter instead, so the whispering falls on someone who can shrug it off. For a while, it almost works. More families call on you than turn you away. The widow's bowl sits wrapped in cloth under your one good shelf, waiting. You start to think there might be a way to live inside this, the way a man learns to live inside a bad marriage or a bad debt, not happily, but steadily. Then, on a Sunday in early spring, the curate stands up during service. He names the practice from the pulpit, not naming you exactly, but naming what you do, calling it heathen, calling it a mockery of true confession, calling on every family in the parish to stop sending for men like you. Before God stops listening to any of them at all, nobody has come to your door in 11 days. If even the people who need you most will never let you belong to them, then who exactly are you saving? If even the people who need you most will never let you belong to them, then you are not saving them. You are surviving them. That is the answer that sits in your chest through 11 silent days. And it is the answer you carry the morning someone finally does knock again. Not out of need, but out of arithmetic. A farmer's son offers you half the customary bread and none of the ale. He tells you 6 pence is more than a man like you deserves anyway, and waits to see if you will argue. You do not. You cannot afford to. The belief you carried the first night, kneeling over that first body, thinking of Israel's goat walking into the wilderness, has thinned into something closer to bookkeeping. You still say the old words. You no longer feel priestly saying them. Mary is carrying a child now. She told you in the dark, quietly, the way she tells you most things these days, as if speaking too loudly might undo it. You hold onto that news the way you once held onto belief. The girl who used to fetch bread for Mary at market stops coming by the second month. Her own mother forbids it, afraid the shame in your house will rub off onto theirs. Mary goes herself again, head down, and comes back with less than she used to, because the baker rounds the price up for her now and never explains why. You still have the widow's bowl, wrapped in your one good cloth under the shelf. You told yourself you would return it the day she died. You did not expect that day to come so soon. A family 2 farms further sends for you in the same season. Poorer than you've ever seen a household get. No bread on the dead man's chest. Nothing but an empty bowl and a boy who cannot look at you. You realize before they say it, they have nothing to offer. You think of the child coming, of the tools already sold, of the bread Mary walks further to buy, and for the first time, you say no. You tell them to find someone else, knowing there is no one else left in the parish who does this. You walk home and do not tell Mary why your hands are shaking. Sleep stops coming easily after that. You start seeing the boy's face at the edge of your eyes when you close them. Not accusing, just waiting, the way he waited in the doorway. Your cough worsens through the damp months. Mary notices you eating less at your own table and says nothing, because she has learned not to ask what a man does with sins he can't put down. Then word comes from Hereford. The widow is dead. Her family sends for you directly, through the front door this time, not the kitchen one, because her will names you by description, if not by name. And no one in the house is willing to be the one who defies a dead woman's last wish. The parson objects, exactly as she said he would, standing in the doorway of her own house, telling her grieving children that what they are about to allow is closer to witchcraft than to Christian burial. Her son answers him the way she would have. It will be done regardless of what the parson thinks, because it is what she paid and planned for, years before any of them knew she'd need it. You perform the rite exactly as she arranged it, using her own bowl, in front of her family and the parson both. It is the only time in your life anyone has stood beside you and watched you do this without flinching. The parson does not forgive being overruled in his own parish. 3 Sundays later, he has you brought before the vestry. He declares, in front of the men who once refused to hire you for far less shameful work, that you are barred from setting foot on consecrated ground in this parish for as long as you live, and, if they have their way, after it as well. You walk home past the churchyard wall where the last man who did this work is buried. On the far side, in the unmarked ground reserved for the unbaptized and the excommunicated, Mary is due within the season. You have not told her yet that when your own time comes, you already know exactly which side of that wall you'll be lying on. This is not a story. The man on the road to Ross was real. John Aubrey wrote him down in Herefordshire in the 1680s, describing him in the exact words that outlived him. A long, lean, ugly, lamentable poor rascal who lived in a cottage on the Ross Highway. Aubrey never recorded his name. He recorded his description, his address, and the fact that people hired him to take the sins of the deceased upon himself by eating bread placed on the corpse and drinking a cup of beer. That is the entire surviving record of a man's life. A body, a bowl, and a road. The widow was real too. A woman in the city of Hereford kept, many years before her death, a bowl for the sin-eater. And when she finally died, her family carried out her wishes exactly, whether the parish parson liked it or not. She got exactly what she planned for. There is no record of what happened to the man who gave it to her. No grave, no name, no year of death. Historians studying this custom note that men in his position were almost always buried in the same place, outside the consecrated wall, in the ground reserved for the excommunicated. It is the pattern for everyone who did this work and left no other trace, so it is reasonable to assume it was his ending too. Not because we found his stone, but because we never find one for men like him. That is the quiet cruelty at the center of this. He gave a dying woman certainty. She gave him a wall he would be buried outside of. What does it take from a person to spend their whole life carrying away what nobody else will touch, knowing the one thing they will never be handed back is a place among the people they served? The sin-eater existed because every community needs somewhere to put what it cannot carry itself. Sociologists call this a scapegoat mechanism. A group draws its risk, its guilt, its fear of the unknown, and hands it to one person to hold, so everyone else gets to stay clean. It is the same logic behind the biblical goat driven into the wilderness. It never disappears. It just changes who has to carry it. 220 years after that man died with no name attached to his grave, a very different man walked back onto the same road. Richard Munslow was not poor. He farmed 70 acres in Shropshire, employed laborers, sat in his own family pew. In 1870, scarlet fever took 3 of his children in a single week. Sometime after, no record says exactly when, he began performing the sin-eater's rite for his neighbors, out of grief instead of debt, out of love instead of desperation, until his own death in 1906, when he became the last known person in England to do this work. He never met the man on the Ross Highway. He didn't need to. He walked the same road anyway, without knowing anyone had walked it before him. Somewhere right now, someone is doing a version of this. not eating bread off a coffin. Just being the one person a family calls when no one else will sit with what's happening. The one who absorbs what everyone else needs absorbed, and gets thanked for it by being kept slightly outside the circle afterward. Who is that person in your life? And when was the last time you let them all the way in? If this made you think of someone who is always the one holding what nobody else will, send them this video, or just tell them you noticed. Next time, the woman whose entire job was to touch the dead, so no one else had to.